Okay, so what we just did there was we began with some commonsensically paradigm everyday examples of freedom and unfreedom. We tried to figure out what they have in common. The cases of freedom seem to have in common that they feel as if they satisfy this garden of forking paths. We formulated that as the AO condition, or the ability to do otherwise. It feels like when I make a free choice, I have many possible futures before me. And the AO condition says that had better be a reality if I'm going to actually be free. It can't just be an illusion. By contrast, unfree actions seem to have in common that they, in various ways, violate that AO condition. There's no garden of forking paths, and that seems to nicely diagnose why they're not free. So going forward, I'm going to presuppose that AO is indeed a necessary condition for freedom. That does not tell us everything we need to know about freedom, but it begins to get a little bit clearer, and it also sets up nicely what the alleged problem of free will is supposed to be. Now, there are lots of specific challenges or alleged problems to the reality of freedom. When you heard the problem of free will, you may have thought of any number of alleged challenges, that some of which you may have heard before, some of which you maybe haven't. So in neuroscience, right, there are these famous experiments, the Libet or Libet, I'm never sure which pronunciation it is, the Libet experiments, which seem to suggest on some readings of the data that when we make decisions, when we're able to verbally report that we've made what we take to be a free decision, that the data seems to show that in fact our brains, so to speak, have already made the decision before we're consciously aware and feel as if we're making it. And the suggestion is that this means that the conscious feeling of making the decision is not what's causing the decision to be made in the brain. The brain kind of has already made it. That's a huge oversimplification, but that's the idea. And if that data is correct, that's a real threat to the reality of freedom. It feels like what I thought was free actually is just like my neurons firing before I even know they are. That's one kind of specific challenge. That's not the one we're going to look at. Another one that you maybe have heard of is a challenge to freedom based on divine foreknowledge. If you're a theist, then you think that there is an omniscient or all-knowing God. Among other things, it feels like God, if God's really is omniscient, God's going to know what you do tomorrow, down to the last detail. If you're going to mow your lawn tomorrow, God knows it. Moreover, God can't be wrong. God knows it infallibly if you mow your lawn tomorrow. So if God knows right now that tomorrow you're going to mow your lawn, and God can't be wrong, then tomorrow you will mow your lawn, whether you want to or not. It's not up to you. God knows, and so you can be guaranteed that what God knows is true, so you can be guaranteed that you will do what God foreknows tomorrow. There's a long history of worrying that the reality of omniscience or divine foreknowledge somehow robs us of our freedom. Throughout the Middle Ages, theologians and philosophers were really concerned with this problem. I will mention that the structure philosophically of this issue is not just a problem for the theist. If you're an atheist, you don't believe in an omniscient God, but you do have to say something about propositions about the future. These are sometimes called future contingents. Here's one way to think about it. Yeah, no one knows whether tomorrow you're going to mow your lawn, but it's either true or false, right? It's either true that you're going to mow your lawn tomorrow, or it's not. The proposition, you will mow your lawn tomorrow, has one of two possible truth values, true or false. If it's true, then it's true right now. If it's false, then it's false right now. If it's false right now, then nothing you can do will make it not the case that tomorrow you will not mow your lawn. If it's true right now, then nothing you can do will make it not the case that you will mow your lawn. Either way, it's, so to speak, fated it's destined up in the stars, written up there in the stars somehow, what you will do tomorrow. I didn't mention anything about an all-knowing God. All I said was there are truths about the future. So it seems like theists and atheists alike have some problems with truths and knowledge about the future. A few other possible threats that, again, we're not going to be discussing. You might think that there are socio-political threats to freedom. There certainly are. State coercion, online manipulation, disinformation, misinformation. These are all specific kinds of threats that to our freedom as citizens, right? Or even more generally as human beings, if it's severe enough. Some people, when they think of determinism, they hear genetic determinism, the idea that your genes predestines you to do certain things, or cultural determinism, the idea that everything, all your values and all your choices that are forming who you are ultimately are determined by your culture. We're not really going to be talking about either of those kinds of determinism, nor will we discuss any of those other specific threats to free will. Instead, the philosophical problem of free will is based on a more general alleged threat to freedom. And this threat to freedom, at least arguably, subsumes all of those specific threats. So it is so general that we don't have to get into the specifics about the neuroscience or the theology or the political philosophy. This is supposed to be a threat that is even more abstract than any of those specific worries. So before you can even start to get yourself concerned about whether online manipulation is robbing you of your freedom, you first had better figure out what to make of the philosophical problem of free will, because that problem is in many ways prior to and not dependent on any specifics about how involved you are in the internet.